I am one of only two candidates on that stage tonight that 10% of Donald Trump voters said they would support in the general election. So if Democrats are looking for someone to beat Donald Trump, I'm as sure as a bet as there is on that stage tonight.
So much of what we put out there, the majority of Americans actually agree with, whether it's expanding healthcare opportunity, housing opportunity, creating jobs for people, or addressing the fact that the rent is too high in places like Columbus and so many other communities. You know, making sure that we have enough housing that is affordable to the middle class, to the working poor, and to the poor. These are things that people agree with, and I don't buy into the Republican talking points that, you know, that folks disagree with creating more housing opportunity or making sure that we have gun safety and that our families are safe from the kind of thing that happened in Dayton, Ohio, or in El Paso, Texas. They want us to act on those kinds of things. What I felt is that I needed to go out there and to continue to articulate a strong, compelling vision for the future of our country, and I think that I did that. Obviously, you have 12 people up there, and so, you know, it's a battle for time. I think I had the lowest amount of time tonight. This has been a problem twice with CNN, and I can complain to Eric about it. But, you know, I made the most of the time that I did have. And I'm going to keep going out there fighting for people that often don't have a voice in this process. I visited folks who are homeless in Oakland and in Las Vegas. I visited with Edith Espinal today. I was in Matamoros, Mexico, talking to people who are applying for asylum, who are caught up in this crazy Remain in Mexico program that the Trump administration is doing. I've spoken with people in Iowa who live in a trailer home, who had one of these private equity groups come in, buy their trailer park home or trailer park, and then jack up the rent. And, you know, they've been living there for 30 years, and they don't know what they're going to do. This campaign has been different. I've given a voice to a lot of people that need it in our country, and I hope the American people see that, and that, my hope is that the polls will begin to reflect that. I believe that if I'm the candidate, the nominee, that I can go and get at least the electoral votes that we lost in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, and win here in Ohio, and also that I'm the best hope to go and get the 29 electoral votes of Florida, the 11 electoral votes of Arizona, and also compete for the 38 electoral votes of my home state of Texas.
Part of the way is that I distinguish myself is as my background was as a career prosecutor, and this is fundamentally an issue about justice. And in the case of Donald Trump, a grave injustice, which is that he has obstructed justice, he has intimidated witnesses, he has incited violence, according to many members of Congress. And so I look at this through the lens of my career being in courtrooms, fighting for the people and fighting for justice. And I do strongly believe, therefore, that there needs to be serious consequence and accountability, which is why I've been in favor of the impeachment process for quite some time. We have to prosecute the case against Donald Trump, and I'm prepared to do that. And there is a lot of evidence that I call the rap sheet on which to do that. But there is no question that when you look at what he has done in terms of violating the trust by selling out workers, everyone from farmers to auto workers, when you look at what he has done to sell out our national security, when he is embracing people like Putin, who is responsible for the Russian interference in the election of the President of the United States, he's embracing Kim Jong-un, who is responsible by all accounts for what happened with an American student who was tortured and later died. When you look at what he has done in terms of selling out our democracy and trying to have Ukraine, a foreign government, interfere in the current election, he has sold out our values. When you look at a policy that's been about putting babies in cages and separating children from their parents in the name of border security, when it's a human rights abuse being committed by the United States government. So there is a very good and strong case to prosecute against Donald Trump. And it will happen certainly through the impeachment process, but it will also happen in the streets. It will also happen on the ballot in 2020. And there's plenty of evidence to say that Donald Trump has abused his authority, he has abused his power, and he has lied to the American people and no longer deserves the office of President of the United States.
So there was a discussion tonight about big tech. You got into a little bit of a squabble, I guess, with Senator Warren about whether or not the president should be banned from Twitter.
Yeah.
Why is that a big priority for you right now?
When we're on the subject of the role of big tech, and when we're on the subject of what should be big tech's responsibility and accountability for their business model and the impact of what they do, we have to understand that Donald Trump, with 65 Twitter followers, has used his platform in a way that has been about intimidating and threatening witnesses, has been in a way that is about obstructing justice, including even threatening members of Congress. And even when you look at the manifesto from the shooter in El Paso, and he references those tweets, the words of the President of the United States, unedited, that are used in that way have a real impact on real human life. And we're talking about a private corporation that has terms of service. And it's a really simple point. He has violated the terms of service, and he has violated the privilege that he has to be on a commercial, private platform, and that right should be removed.
The biggest thing people are going to want to know is that whoever the next president is going to be competent and trustworthy on the economy, both in terms of growth and in terms of sharing the income in the United States.
And is that you?
Look, I have 30 years in the private sector. I think I understand in a granular fashion what makes countries prosperous, what allows them to share that prosperity across the people in a way that nobody else has. And I think I have an ability to take him on. He's a failed business person. He's a failed steward of the economy. He's going to run on the economy if he's not impeached and thrown out of office. And he's an absolute failure on the economy. And I think I'm a person who's in a position to absolutely expose him for what he is, which is a fake and a failure.
But the economy is doing great.
You know, that's one way of saying it, but actually if you look at the economy, on average it's doing great, but 95% of Americans aren't sharing in it. Go back and take a look. Working Americans have gotten screwed for 40 years. They're still getting screwed. We have a lot of jobs, but you can't live on the jobs. You have a lot of jobs, but you can't pay for your health care. You can't pay for your rent on those jobs. Take an actual look about how the money's getting split up in the United States of America. Shockingly, unfairly, and unjustly. And it's proof that what I've been saying is true. These corporations have bought the government, and they've enabled it to absolutely take advantage of working people and the labor movement specifically.
To meet any foreign policy challenge, whether it is getting out of the wars that we're already in, or meeting the greatest challenge that we face, which is confronting climate change before it's too late, we can't do any of that on our own. We will need friends and allies around the world. So rebuilding those friendships so badly damaged by this president is really important.
What were you not asked that you wanted to talk about?
You've got to make sure that you literally are talking to those world leaders, sitting at the table with them, showing them respect, and making sure that those alliances, which were so often forged in service and sacrifice, going all the way back to World War II, are renewed again. All of those alliances now are in question after the behavior of this president.
Can you please just clarify how you will get the ARs and the AKs back?
I expect our fellow Americans to follow the law. If you own an AR-15, if you own an AK-47, and it is now no longer legal to own that, then I expect you to turn it in. I don't think
bad guys do it though.
Look, if someone is defying the law, then there will be consequences, just as there is for any law that's on the books right now. So I think we should have some faith in our fellow Americans, gun owners and non-gun owners alike, including the owners of AK-47s and AR-15s, to do the right thing. And I think it's really important that especially those in the middle class, or those who aspire to be in the middle class, know whether or not she will impose a tax increase on them. And she repeatedly refused to answer the question. In my administration, if you make $250,000 as a family or less, you will not see a tax increase in any year of my administration. It's important for people to know that. They are working so hard right now. They need to know that they do not face a tax increase under my administration. Under a Warren administration, it is unclear right now. She refused to answer the question.
And are you concerned?
Is she a truth teller?
What's that?
Does she tell it like it is?
She failed to do that tonight, and she's failed to do that in previous debates. And I think on an issue as important as healthcare and an issue as important as taxes on the middle class, this country deserves to hear the truth.
Elevating Donald Trump live. The network hosting it even debunked. We actually gave them oxygen tonight. I've seen this play before. I saw it in 2016 on how people kept on having Donald Trump tell lies. It would literally lead the news, his lies, giving it more oxygen, more attention to the detriment of truth, of democracy, and our candidate for president. So I'm not letting this happen. I don't care if it's Joe Biden or Castro or Yang. I'm going to be one of these people that calls this out. And tonight, it was unacceptable to me that literally the second issue, before we got into issues of health care, before we got issues of child poverty, women's reproductive rights, we were repeating Donald Trump lies that have been debunked before. We should not do his work for him. The RNC was blissfully happy that Democrats were engaging with lies like we did tonight. I'm calling it right now that we all have a responsibility. People in the media and us. We have allowed this president, through his last campaign till now, to constantly tell lies that are butchering the truth. And one of the greatest threats to our democracy, this is like George Orwell was predicting this, is when people start not being able to distinguish between truth and lies, democracy suffers. This is a president that spends hours and hours at night tweeting out lie after lie after lie, elevating lies and bigotry from other folks and elevating them. And you know what the news media does and others do? They talk about it. They give it oxygen. Enough is enough. Let's get back to truth. Let's get back to facts. Let's get back to science and get back to unifying our country and not allowing demeaning and degrading the character of someone like Joe Biden or anybody on that stage. It's going to have more of an impact on your lives. Issues from affordable college to climate change. This is going to be powerfully affecting young people. And just because you can't vote doesn't mean you can't influence the elections. You have the ability to get out there and volunteer, to work, to support the candidates that you believe in and that you want to help. And so to all the young folks out there, I want you to join my team, join my mission. I will not only recognize you, but frankly, as President of the United States, I will have young people at the table in important policy conversations and helping me to shape the destiny and the future of America, because you are the future of America. You should have a seat at the table helping to shape it. We're going to make sure that we end this system that is so exploiting college athletes and not allowing them to have what should be the legitimate deal, which is getting a degree, taking care of their bodies, and empowering their minds. And it's even further than that. In professional sports, we're talking about that as well.
Right.
The gender inequities right now for professional soccer players,
Absolutely.
it is so outrageous that we still, in 2019, do not have equal pay for equal work. Or people actually that are earning more money, creating more profits for leagues, are now seeing less pay. That should have everybody up in arms.
Absolutely. And with the student athletes, would you make the colleges pay for it?
Yeah.
Yes.
The colleges are profiting off of them. I should say two words. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah.